My parents paid for my sister's dream wedding but told me to take out loans for the heart surgery that could save my life. Now they're homeless and begging me for help. So, the whole messy saga kicked off 3 years back when I was just 26. I got hit with the news that I had this heart issue called hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. In simple terms, my heart muscle was going turbo and getting way too thick, and it was a ticking time bomb unless I got surgery ASAP. The docs were pretty blunt. They said waiting wasn't an option unless I wanted to risk keeling over from cardiac arrest. So there I was, in the cardiologist's office, trying not to freak out as he talked about slicing out a chunk of my heart muscle to save my life. Fast forward, we set the surgery for October 15th, and I nearly fainted because even with insurance, this procedure was going to set me back a cool $40,000. It felt like a cruel joke since I was a graphic designer, busting my butt just to cover rent and pay off student loans. In a bit of a panic, I picked up the phone and called my parents. I laid it all out for them, the whole sobering diagnosis, the looming surgery, and the jaw-dropping bill. Cue my mom bursting into tears, and my dad jumping on the line, reassuring me they'd figure out a way to help. I felt a wave of relief because, hey, parental love to the rescue, right? But, plot twist, a couple of days later, my sister Jenna rings me up, buzzing with excitement because she just got engaged to Barry, this dude I've met maybe 3 times. She goes on about how they want a dreamy December wedding in Hawaii, which is where they first vacationed together. Aw, romantic, right? Jenna always dreamed of a beach wedding. Meanwhile, I'm trying to wrap my head around my own life or death situation. The kicker? This paradise wedding was going to cost around $60,000, and she expected our folks to foot most of the bill, just like they did for our brother's wedding 2 years back. So, next dinner at my folks' place, I cautiously bring up the surgery again because the hospital's hounding me for a deposit and all that jazz. My dad gets this look, and my mom won't even look at me. That's when I knew something was up. They broke it to me that they'd already locked in a ton of cash into Jenna's wedding things, like the venue, caterer, and photographer. Non-refundable, of course. Plus, they're shelling out to fly the family out to Hawaii. When I did the math, it hit me like a ton of bricks, $50,000 for a wedding, but no $40,000 for my surgery. Dad tried explaining, saying they'd already made commitments, and they're in too deep now. Jenna had been dreaming of this day forever, even if she only got engaged 2 weeks ago. Mom chipped in, suggesting maybe I could postpone the surgery. I stared at her, shocked, like, does she not remember the doc saying delay could mean death? Cutting it close wasn't an option. I reminded them that heart issues ran in the family and pointed out how Grandpa died at 58 because of it. Mom went quiet, and Dad mentioned getting a loan or a payment plan. Seriously? Going into debt over surgery when they're splurging on a day-long party seemed nuts to me. I guess Jenna overheard us and flipped out, accusing me of trying to ruin her dream wedding. She claimed I was milking my situation to guilt-trip our parents. That was it. We started yelling, I was defending my dire need, and she was accusing me of being dramatic, insisting I was attention-seeking. My parents were stuck in the middle, watching the whole thing go down. So, there we were, my parents and I, just chilling in silence while my sister and I were having this epic meltdown, yelling about which one of us might be biting the dust. Finally, my dad steps in and tells us to chill out, announcing that they've already made up their minds. They're gonna foot the bill for Jenna's wedding since they kinda promised her this whole dream wedding deal and can't bail now. But they'll try to help me out after the wedding, if I can hang tight. I was like, are you serious? And just stormed off because I couldn't wrap my head around it. Once I got home, I called my brother, Aaron, and spilled the beans about what went down. He said he'd love to help but just dropped a ton of cash on a house and his wife is expecting, so he's kinda strapped too. He could maybe lend me $5,000, which was super kind, but not nearly enough. I was running out of options and time, so I ended up taking out loans and maxing out my credit cards, basically wrecking my finances to pay for this surgery. I had the operation on October 15th as planned, and thank goodness, it went well. The doc says I'm good for now, but I gotta keep up with regular checkups and might need another surgery down the line. But hey, at least I'm still kicking, which wouldn't have been the case if I'd waited until after Jenna's beach shindig. My parents didn't even swing by the hospital on surgery day because they were neck deep in wedding prep. Jenna had some sort of drama over flowers or music or something that simply couldn't wait, so they drove 3 hours to chat with the wedding planner. My mom just shot me a good luck text and that was it. Aaron was there for me, as was my best friend Sarah, and that was really comforting, but it stung like crazy that my folks couldn't make an appearance while I was literally under the knife. Yet, a 3-hour drive for wedding stuff? No problem. Recovering from surgery was rough. I was out of work for 6 weeks, couldn't cover the rent for 2 months, and ended up crashing on my old college roommate's couch. My credit cards were through the roof, and debt collectors were hounding me. Life was pretty much a mess, but hey, I was alive. December rolled around and Jenna had her fairy tale wedding. Social media was flooded with my parents' photos, gushing about their magical day. I didn't go. Still healing and, honestly, super bitter and angry. I couldn't face pretending everything was peachy. Fast forward about 6 months after the wedding, and my dad calls wanting to talk. He sounded all stressed, so I thought maybe they wanted to apologize and help with my mountains of medical bills. But nope, turns out they're knee-deep in financial hot water, risking losing their house. They didn't just blow 50 grand on Jenna's wedding, they blew almost 80 grand. The guest list ballooned, Jenna wanted all these fancy upgrades, and they even paid for flights and hotels. They went so far as to take out a loan on the house. And now they're asking if I can help them out. I couldn't help but laugh. My dad wasn't amused, saying it's no joke, but they should have thought about that before prioritizing a wedding over my life-saving surgery. My mom thought I was being harsh, but I just told it like it was. They made their choice, and now they had to deal with it. I couldn't save them when I had to figure out how to save myself. A year later, they lost the house. My dad picked up a second job driving for a delivery app, and my mom started cleaning houses on weekends. Jenna and her husband moved away to escape the mess. I felt a bit sorry for my parents because they're getting older, and this has been tough on them. But they made their choices, and now they have to face the music. I was still drowning in medical debt and just barely making ends meet, so even if I wanted to help, I couldn't. Then yesterday, my mom showed up at my place, crying and begging for help because they're facing eviction from their apartment. She apologized for the surgery mess, admitted they screwed up, and said she knows I probably hate them. They're desperate and need money. So, here's the deal. My parents showed up at my doorstep needing a place to crash. And there I was, staring at my mom, who's 62 and crying right in front of me. Part of me wanted to help because, well, she's my mom and I love her. But then I couldn't shake off the memory of when I needed heart surgery. I was terrified, and they totally bailed on me. I ended up telling her I couldn't help them and shut the door. Hearing her cry from the other side was gut-wrenching, but I also felt like they kind of had it coming. Why should I clean up their mess when they didn't have my back during a life or death situation? Later, my brother Aaron called. He said mom phoned him, all tears, and he thought I should help them out because they're our parents, they're getting old, and hey, everyone messes up. He wanted me to be the bigger person. But I told him if he felt that strongly about it, he could invite them to stay with him and his pregnant wife and see how that pans out. Aaron didn't think that was fair since he didn't have the room. I reminded him that when I needed heart surgery and they ditched me for Jenna's wedding, things weren't exactly fair for me either. So yeah, tough choices all around. Then, out of nowhere, Jenna calls after like a 2-year radio silence, laying into me about how I could turn our parents away. She said I was being selfish and needed to let go of the past. I suggested she could always send them money if she's that worried. She wasn't having it, said it wasn't her responsibility, and before hanging up, told me I'd regret this and was a terrible person. Honestly, I'm all kinds of confused, angry, and sad here. While I feel guilty, I also feel justified. Am I wrong? Every family member seems to have a strong opinion, but they all have their motives. It's not like I'm swimming in cash. Between my medical bills and freelance gigs, money's tight. And even if I had the cash, I'm not sure I'd want to help, especially considering they prioritized a wedding over my life-saving surgery. Maybe that's petty, as Jenna says, but I think it's pretty human to feel angry. If they couldn't own up to their choices when I needed them, why should I clean up their mess now? Anyway, things have escalated. After I shared this story, my phone blew up because mom spread the word that I was leaving them high and dry. Suddenly, family members I haven't heard from in ages were calling, telling me I'm selfish and need to help my parents because, family sticks together. But then my cousin Sylvia, who I've always been tight with, called to get my side of things. After I laid it all out, she was stunned and said she hadn't known my parents didn't help with my surgery. At Jenna's wedding, they were telling everyone about the big financial burden of my surgery, taking all the love and sympathy for being these great, sacrificing parents. I mean, can you believe that? While I was drowning in debt and crashing on a friend's couch, they were lapping up praise they didn't deserve. When I told Aaron about this, he got real quiet. He vaguely remembered some mention of it at the wedding but was too distracted with his own stuff to pay attention. So there it is, my parents chose the wedding over my surgery and concocted this whole heroic narrative to the family while I was left in the lurch. So, I was already super upset and convinced I did the right thing, but yesterday just took things to a new level. Picture this: I'm at a coffee shop with a client, showing off my logo designs, trying to be all professional. Suddenly, my mom shows up out of nowhere, crying her eyes out, asking the barista if they know me, and pointing in my direction. Talk about awkward. My client looked totally lost, so I had to step away and see what was up with my mom, who was sitting in the corner, looking like a mess and begging me to talk to her for 5 minutes. I told my client I had to deal with a family emergency and that we'd have to reschedule. I took my mom outside, and she started apologizing, saying they messed up big time about my surgery, and how they know they hurt me. She was pleading for help and promised they'd pay me back once they got back on their feet. I asked her about what she said at Jenna's wedding, that they'd helped with my surgery. She looked caught, admitting she was too embarrassed to tell people they couldn't help and didn't want to seem like bad parents, so she let everyone assume they had helped. But Sylvia told me they were actually taking credit for it. I called her out, and she just cried more, saying she was ashamed and just wanted us to be a family again. Part of me felt bad because she looked so broken, but then I couldn't help thinking about how easy it was for her to lie to everyone about something so serious, making me look like the ungrateful daughter who couldn't handle her own stuff. So, I told her I needed time to think. She said they're desperate because they're getting kicked out next week. I told her that's not my emergency, and then she got mad, saying I'm stubborn like my dad, and walked away. Later, Jenna called me. This time, she wasn't yelling, but crying. She said she talked to Mom and knows about all the lies, and feels terrible. She wants to help, but she and Barry are broke too since he lost his job, and they're living with his parents in Ohio. She hinted that if I help Mom and Dad, she'll pay me back when they're all back on their feet. I realized she's still passing the buck, so I told her she got the fairy tale wedding, now she needs to deal with our parents' mess. She said she never asked them to spend so much, but I reminded her they chose her wedding over my surgery, and now she has to face that. Some might say I'm being harsh, but I'm exhausted from always being the one expected to fix everything. I'm still dealing with the financial and emotional fallout, like messed up credit and therapy to handle nearly dying and feeling abandoned. Now, they want me to save them from their mess-ups, and that's just not fair. I'm sticking with my decision. If that's wrong, so be it, but I won't enable their behavior. Maybe facing the music will teach them something. For my last update, because I'm so over this situation, my parents did lose their place and are crashing with my Uncle Paul and his wife, who aren't thrilled about it. Jenna called, mad that our parents are basically homeless, blaming me for not stopping it. I told her I didn't make them spend a fortune on her wedding or take out loans. Their situation isn't my fault. She accused me of being heartless and said I'd regret it when they pass, feeling guilty for not helping when I could have. But honestly, they didn't help me when I needed them the most, and that's just how it is. Wow, it's been a wild ride dealing with all this family drama. There was a time when I almost didn't make it, and I honestly hoped that would be a wake-up call for them to learn to survive without me, like I had to learn to do without them. But then Jenna really got under my skin. She downplayed my surgery, acting like it wasn't a big deal and saying people live with heart conditions all the time without needing surgery. I realized she's never going to get it. So, I told her to keep pretending her wedding was more important than my life if that helps her sleep at night. But the truth's out there now, and she can't change it to make herself feel better. After that, I blocked her because I'm done having the same argument over and over. Meanwhile, Aaron's been trying to stay Switzerland on this whole thing. He told me our parents are working their butts off at multiple jobs to save up for a new apartment, and they're hoping they can swing it by next month, but it's super tight for them. He asked if I'd reconsider helping them with a deposit, just that, not anything ongoing. I reminded him I already said no, and I'm sticking to it. If he wants to help, that's up to him. Aaron thinks I should maybe let go of the anger because it's eating at me too, and that they've actually learned their lesson. I just told him some lessons cost a lot, and maybe they should have thought about that before making their choices. After that, he didn't push, but I could tell he thinks I'm being stubborn. Maybe I am, but I see it as being consistent. I'm just protecting myself from people who have already shown they'll bail on me when I need them most. Funny thing is, I feel way better now than I have in a long time because I've finally stood up for myself and set some boundaries with my family. I'm not lugging around all this resentment and second-guessing myself anymore. I've been in therapy since all this started, and it's helped me understand that what my parents did was basically abandonment. It's okay to protect myself, even from family, even if they're sorry now. Health-wise, I'm doing pretty good. My heart's stable, and I go for checkups every 6 months. The cardiologist says everything's looking good as long as I keep an eye on things and take care of myself. The medical debt is almost gone, and my credit score is slowly climbing. I'm pretty proud of getting through all that solo, even though it was a rough ride. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if I had waited for Jenna's wedding before having the surgery, like my parents wanted. Honestly, I probably wouldn't be here now. My condition was getting worse fast, and the doctors were super clear that delaying the surgery was a big no-no. So when people tell me to forgive my parents because they didn't get how serious it was, I remind them the docs were very clear that I could have died at any moment. My parents ignored that because it messed with their plans, and I can't just be okay with that. Some folks think I'm being too harsh. Maybe some of you might think I should help my folks because they're old and scared, and family's supposed to stick together. But I believe family should stick together when someone's facing life or death surgery, too. And they didn't. I'm not saying I'll never have a relationship with my parents again. But right now, I need some space, and they need to understand their actions had consequences. I'm not going to act like everything's peachy just to make them feel better about what they did. Jenna can keep living her life in Ohio with Barry, pretending her wedding wasn't the source of all this drama. My parents can keep hustling to fix their financial mess. I'm focusing on my life and making sure I'm okay, something I had to learn to do on my own. I really appreciate everyone who reached out with support. It helped me feel less alone. It's great to know there are people out there who get that you've got to put yourself first sometimes, even if it's hard. That's it for my saga. I'm moving on. I've spent enough time and energy on people who don't prioritize my well-being. I deserve better, and so does anyone who's ever been let down by the ones who should love them no matter what. If you haven't yet, please subscribe. And hit the notification bell to stay updated with more crazy real-life stories happening around you.